Welcome to an episode of Remote Teaching Diaries, presented by Quizlet. My name is Darius White, also known as the other English teacher on IG. If you're here to teach one, I'm here to reach one. This segment is important because it's about teachers telling their stories, teachers teaching teachers, and ultimately teachers taking care of teachers. Right? I have a special guest who I've known for more than 5 or 6 years, right? We go back since 2000.
I want to say 2014. That's when I was in Berkeley, I believe.
Word.
So 13.
She's been one of my great mentors and also great friends. And without further ado, this is my great friend, Dulce Acevedo-Delgado. Yay! Word. Well, let's jump into it. Would you mind introducing yourself and tell us kind of where you teach and what grades you have?
So my name is Dulce. I teach in Hayward, Cherryland Elementary. It is a K-6 bilingual alternative school. I currently have a 5th and 6th grade combo for Spanish bilingual class.
So
Yes.
light brown.
Yeah.
What are 3 words to describe your 2020 thus far?
I would say relentless, vulnerable, and eye-opening in a lot of ways. And even, it's not even so much literally eye-opening. I feel like it's soul-wrenching. Like, you're not just seeing through your eyes things you haven't seen before, you're feeling things you haven't felt before. So that, I'm sure there's better words. But.
Following up with that, we're in this whole online, remote, virtual teaching current moment. What have been some of the things you've observed, some successes, some challenges thus far?
Some successes are that parents are doing their best and coming through to try to do everything possible to get their kids online. Our school community has also provided hundreds of laptops, Chromebooks to families in need, hotspots. Communication has been solid between parents and I. And other successes, the students are, they're glad to be back. I know they wish we could be back fully, but I think they're glad to have something in their day-to-day to see other people and interact. So that's been great. We're in week 3 this week, and a lot of them are already just warming my heart with just the way they approach things or the questions they ask, and just they make me laugh, and that's one of the most important things for me. Yeah.
What was the moment over the last 3 weeks for you? I'm finishing my second week. What was the moment where you realized, like, we're back in school and I love my job? Kind of all in the same.
It was on the morning drive here. I live 10 minutes away in San Leandro.
Mm-hmm.
And every morning is not a smooth morning. It's a hustle. It's, getting things ready. I haven't learned to prep my lunch beforehand. So in the night before. So I'm rushing out. And as soon as I park and I'm walking up, I look at the school. It's empty. My classroom's empty. But I'm excited to, click the start Zoom button. And I actually said it out loud. I was like, oh my gosh, I love these kids already. And it's only been the 3rd week. So I remembered just that reward that you get of connecting with young minds. And it's something not everybody gets to do. So
what has been a funny moment, like a ha-ha funny moment thus far in the online teaching era?
I think just seeing the little characters pop out when they're, they need to wiggle around and they don't care. So we're talking 5th and 6th grade here, where it's like, oh, hold on, I'm having technical difficulties. There's 5 people trying to log in. We're already 10 minutes late. And then the kids are just like, all right, I'm gonna go use the bathroom then. And they just kind of leave their mic on, and you just you don't hear them do everything, but you're just kind of like, thanks for letting us know, David. Like, you could have done that more discreetly. Or they're just wiggly, and you see the siblings pop in and out. You see things flying around sometimes, and you get to know all the pets and the family. So there's been some really funny moments with that. So
You get to meet the cats, the dogs, the grandpas, the aunts, the twin siblings, the college age siblings. Everybody's walking.
Yeah.
And then you talk to a kid and they're like, Mr. White, is it okay if we're eating dinner at the table? I go, it's fine. We're all here. Like, everybody say hi, and all the boxes start waving, and I go,
Yeah.
put it yeah. What has it been like? Have you been teaching from your classroom?
Yes, for the most part, I have been. It's really the only way that I could focus and separate my mother brain from my teacher brain. When I'm in the same roof as my child, I hear, smell, and feel everything. So I made that choice to come here and actually feel like I have a place of my own that's for me. So I enjoy teaching from here. It's lonely. It's a little lonely, but there's some other teachers here as well.
Speaking of that, you wear so many hats, right? Obviously, so many different identities. How are you finding some sense of balance with, motherhood, teacher, person, wife?
There's not great balance right now. I feel like work has been 60 to 70% as of late. And I try to do most of that while I'm here. And then the 30% when I get home is for my son. And when he goes to bed, I'm kind of back to, all right, let me see what I could configure and work on for class, in the coming days. So the balance is rough, but I'm trying to put it at the forefront to do more self-care, even if that means doing nothing for 10 to 15 minutes, trying to do a little bit of meditation or doing something I enjoy. But it's definitely tough. As you know, teaching is not a leave your work at work type of job if you're really doing it. So it is not often that I'm not, doing this work at home as well. So it's a work in progress.
How's the dog?
Oh, Max?
Yes, Mad Max.
Max is, he's also lonely and wishes he had more attention. So, like most of us, right? We just wish we had more attention.
So, hopefully we get, different viewership for people who are not familiar with teaching, right? They just see us as these kind of robotic beings in the classroom. What are some things that, you like to express to people that people who are not in the field may not understand or may not know as far as that behind the scenes work goes?
That's tough. I actually find that I don't try to explain it. If you're not in the field, I reserve my energy for my fellow colleagues and, expel it there, or, it's tough. I wish the only thing or way I feel that people would understand is if they spent a week in a classroom with the teacher as an assistant / helper or something. And that's just not that we can be in the class right now, but that's just one scope of it. The planning and the ideas and the creativity that are swirling through your head all day long, whether you want them to or not. It's nonstop. I know some people are good at shutting that off better than others. But we're in such a time of evolution that we always have to evolve with our kids and the new group that we see every year. I just don't think that's something easy to explain. To someone who doesn't, I can say these words to someone else and they may just nod, but I don't think they're going to fully feel what I mean. So. And
yeah. Are you 10 years in the game? More than
12 years. 12.
Let's go. Okay, we got a vet.
Somewhat.
What has changed over the years for you in terms of how you approach your teaching philosophy or your practice?
I want to say it. So when I taught in Los Angeles, my first 4 to 5 years, I was very much in my own shell. And once I came up to the Bay Area, more close to when we met, those barriers are starting to break down a little bit more. And so now I I try to be as genuine as I can. Even if the kids, may not laugh at my jokes or sarcasm, which is something you're not supposed to do in the classroom, but that's just who I am. So I'm not as embarrassed or as censored as I used to be. As cliche as it might sound, like, I really do teach from the heart. I don't teach from a book or from the new curriculum I don't care what curriculum the district tells me we're using. That's always like completely obsolete as soon as it comes out to me. Because I very much teach in the moment and to what's going on. So, we handed out some materials, and fifth graders do U.S. history, I believe, and then sixth graders do ancient civilizations. And I'm like, we may not even touch those books. Like, the only reason we may touch the U.S. history is to talk about everything that's missing from the textbook. Ancient civilization, that's always fun, but we need to talk about now, and I am kind of making that decision myself I think it's more important for my sixth graders. Maybe you'll miss out on some of that ancient civilization stuff right now to talk more about the current events and how we got here as a country, as a nation, whatever we are. So I've always focused on the current events and just kind of backwards mapping from there. So, they have their social studies books. It's more of a extra reading if you'd like to go through it, but I kind of create my own curriculum from there. Whereas before, I would try to follow the book because that's all you could kind of do in the beginning when you're learning. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at.
What have so you teach, these young folks, right? I got sophomores and seniors, and I guess my question is, what are these conversations about current events, and not just what's happening today and this summer, but, historically what's been happening, whether it's, immigration reform, police brutality. What do those conversations look like with that age group?
There's a lot of, I don't want to say digging, but it's a lot of questioning. It's more questioning than anything else, where it's, okay, it might be, how do you feel about this situation with Black Lives Matter? What do you know about it? And then build from what they know and start to kind of mirror situations in their own community that remind them of what's going on now, so that they can create that bridge of empathy. Because I teach basically 100% Latino students. So while they may not even have a friend who's Black, some of them do, but it's kind of rare here in this neighborhood of Cherryland. But, they can relate to it from another standpoint because they've had other family members in trouble with law enforcement, or families who are immigrants who have been mistreated, who have been denied just basic human rights, families who have been separated in a lot of ways. So I try to just create those bridges, and it's mostly me asking them, how do you imagine you would feel if you were in this situation? How do you think that person feels? And so they start to kind of make connections that way. And for me, it's all about really that. I think that's the biggest thing from before to now, is that everything is connected and everyone is connected. Call it math, call it science, call it reading, literature, like everything is part of everything else. And while that's tough, it's a very abstract concept for a fifth or sixth grader to maybe fully grasp, I like to plant those seeds early on so they can start, making connections that way.
What have you seen as the kind of impact of your approach to teaching? Have you seen stronger teacher-student relationships? What has been the impact?
I definitely feel like building student rapport has never been an issue for me. I think they feel that I come from a place of care, that I genuinely care for their well-being. I want them to succeed, and I want them to understand the world. So even though, sometimes, again, a concept may be too abstract, or, we have a kid who's not ready in the moment to fully learn at the very least, when they move on to other years, if they're still here, sometimes they move on to high school, middle school. I do feel that they just have a different lens of questioning certain things. So they may not fully get everything, but they'll ask the questions like, but why is it this way? So why are things how they are? Why are we learning this? What's this going to help me do? So, and it's not it'd be a big misconception if I said 100% of all my kids go on to be such critical thinkers, but I do believe a lot of them continue that way. And in Cherryland, we're a pretty awesome community of educators that are, for the most part, trying to do similar things in that regard, creating critical thinkers.
So to kind of get into the journey you've been on, right? What kind of made you go into teaching?
When I decided to go into teaching, I was not fully aware. I was an undergrad, probably in my third year at UCLA. I wasn't not even 20% close and conscious of just all the injustices that I'm conscious of now. But what I did know is that for me as a child growing up, school was my safe space. It was my structure, and it was something I look forward to going to. And for me, that replaced a lot of things that were missing at home. And so I kind of went into teaching in the beginning, just having that mindset that, not everybody gets the luxuries and everything that you might need emotionally at home. Doesn't have to be material things, but I can be that other person who listens. I could be that other person who helps push someone forward, and a place where you just kind of have fun and just laugh and be creative together. And I just felt that having a safe space for kids is what I wanted to create. And it just evolved so much after I did my master's at UCLA also. They had a very social justice framework. And I think that's when my eyes started to open to a lot of other things. And it's just grown from there.
So I'm taking notes. You see me look off screen. So
yeah, I see that.
Talked about empathy, talked about connection, talked about safe space. What's something, and I think you touched on it, what's something from your own upbringing or childhood, a value that you try to bring or reflect in your teaching practice?
A value, again, it's just, I would go back to the things that I didn't have. So no one pushed me to be creative as a kid. No one necessarily sat down and taught me things. I was very much an observer and learned on my own. And so from that, I wanted to provide that for other kids. So just, giving them an outlet to grow instead of just staying stagnant and not being exposed to anything. So
was there any moment that confirmed for you that you wanted to work with young people, or you wanted to do this kind of advocacy, social justice work?
There's a few moments, but the first one that actually made me want to work with children was I was part of this group called UCLA Bruin Corps. And we would basically go to schools and read with children. We would read with kindergartners, one-on-one reading. And I remember a lot of these kindergartners, and this was in South LA, a lot of them were new to the country, they were immigrants. So they couldn't understand the English books, but they still loved sitting there and reading the books together. And that's kind of the beauty of when you're learning to read, you can make a story in your mind with the pictures. But the fact that you're being read to is exciting. And I remember sitting there reading, and this little girl, I knew Spanish, obviously. So I would ask her, do you understand? And she'd be like, no. But she was still just smiling and pointing at things and telling me things in Spanish about it. So I would go ahead and translate anyway, kind of create my own story in Spanish for her. but it was just seeing that joy of like someone's reading to me was something I was like, I think I can do this. This is cool. I want to read to kids. I want to get them excited about books. And yeah, that's definitely one of the key points for sure.
So for those viewers who, again, I hope the stories are resonating with our viewership. As a woman of color, bilingual, in some senses bicultural, dealing with American and then like home culture, how has that been a part of your makeup as a teacher and as a person trying to juggle those different identities?
Well, you know, being a daughter of immigrants and the only person in my family, like family of five siblings, to actually pull through and like finish a 4-year, get my master's, I feel extremely privileged to be a teacher here. You don't have to have your master's to be a teacher, but when I'm here with the kids and we can relate on being children of immigrants, or, you know, yeah, my dad came from here, or how did your dad cross the border? Was it dangerous? We can share a lot of common stories. And so right there, it's like an automatic connection. And so that's like one scope of my identity, but I've also gone to the other side of like, well, you kind of left your neighborhood, you didn't stay there, and you're gone, and you can say I'm being successful, right, on my own terms, but you know, you have influence over young people. And so when you see little people running around that remind you of yourself, I think it creates a different type of investment. It's like, even though I'm gone from Southern California where I grew up, I'm still in my neighborhood in a lot of ways, you know? And I'm working with, because it's a bilingual Spanish program, there's families from all over the place, you know, different parts of Central America, Mexico for sure. And, you know, I get to learn a lot about what's going on. And it's a reciprocal relationship that we have where it's like, I have the privilege that you're entrusting me with your child, but also I have the privilege to learn from you about your experience. Like you're fulfilling my experience, my intelligence, my emotional intelligence by telling me your story. And some parents are just so open about it to tell me, you know, one example is, oh, so, you know, Alejandra doesn't like to talk that much. When we came from Honduras, it was bad. It was bad in every sense of what you could think is bad traveling here. And she didn't elaborate, but I kind of already had an idea of what she was talking about. And she told me she's a little traumatized. She's like, I'm not going to lie. She sees a counselor, but, you know, if she doesn't participate as much, it's just, she's very reserved. She's very quiet and holding on to a lot of traumas. And her mom was, you know, not every mother is going to feel so comfortable coming and telling a teacher that, you know, but I feel like because of the way I had approached her and talked to her and asked her, how can I help? What do you need? You know, she was very open in telling me, like, we're living in a shelter right now. We've been living here for years, since we got here from Honduras. And it, you know, it kind of, for me, it influences me because I could have been, you know, whoever played their cards, right? Like, I easily could have been a whole different kid living in Mexico had my parents not come here. I could have not been a teacher if certain powers that be didn't push me in the right direction, or had I made different decisions. But so I get to understand living in this academic status quo kind of world, going to university, doing all that. But I also understand the people who are coming here, and I understand the love they have for their families. I know how hard they work, and I understand the injustices that they face. just by simply trying to put food on the table. So I just think it makes this job humbling. It makes it more rewarding. And the fact that I can't see as many of them as I normally do, it's lonely and it's sad. But, I'm seeing them on Zoom as best as we could. We did a distribution, and just seeing the kids drive by in their cars and me handing them a backpack full of stuff, it filled me up that day, so I'll probably make more excuses to have them drive by and pick up stuff just to get my fill,
Word.
Yeah.
Since we're both reading teachers, right? And writing teachers. I know you've got a plethora of books. What's one or two books you've been reading for personal leisure or youth, young adult books that you find exciting? Because I know you've recommended books like, what's the one about Fernando the Bull?
Yeah, Ferdinand.
Yeah, my first graders love that book. And then the other one I got recommended was Mo Willems. Anything by Mo Willems is masterpiece, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Young people books that you've been reading that you just find to be exciting, period?
I just have to hit up my Northern Irishman author, Oliver Jeffers. I love his books. Here We Are is his latest, and it's about the world and living on the planet and just how we're all people. And so I actually started off my classroom with that book. Like, we read the book, we watched his short little TED Talk about how all over the world, it's not countries, it's people live here, people live here, people live here. Like, people live all over the globe, And so I appreciate his philosophy and also trying to connect others and showing kids that we're all connected, even to the animals. I recommend any of his books. They're great. About friendship, about losing someone, Heart in the Bottle. That one's good too. And then I'm actually reading the book you recommended, which was Like a Mother. I'm halfway into it, and it's such a smooth read, but that's part of my self-care. I try to fit in some 10 minutes if I have the energy before I go to bed. So
that book is... for me, I'm not a mom, I'm not a parent, but it is mind-blowing. Like a Mother, there's so many things I did not think about with pregnancy, from the healthcare system or lack thereof, care in the healthcare system, to the marvels of the body, right?
Yes. And yeah, it opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. I mean, I didn't get to see my placenta, so not to get too into it, but I'm like, hey, that thing, I should have at least taken a look at it, right? Whatever. Just throw it in the trash. But yeah, it's reading. Oh, and I have to give a shout out to Elizabeth Acevedo. Her works, no relation. She's a Dominican writer from New York, and Clap When You Land, amazing book. It's a narrative poetry, so it reads like a story, but it's in poetic form. It's amazing. And she also wrote The Poet X. So those are amazing. I still need to read her other book, which is The Fire on High. I have it sitting in my house right now. So
word.
Yes, please read it if you haven't.
As we kind of wrap up, again, thank you for your time. What is a question or a thought or an understanding, something you want to leave the viewers with?
The first thing I think of is related to children, and you don't have to have your own children for this, but what kind of world are we leaving for our children? And I think of, here at Cherryland, we talk about our kids as the kids in my classroom, the kids next door, everybody, but also just our kids in general. Like, what kind of world do we want to leave for them? And what do we want to teach them? What kind of examples do we want to be? Because they're going to be in the future living on. And I think what we help create for them now or help them build is really important. So, I could just imagine someone who doesn't have children, who's very self-centered, not care, gonna die anyway, turn into dust. I'm going to destroy the planet and do whatever. But I guess it's like, how do we reach those people too? Like, how do we get them to connect instead of being isolated? Because I think because people have lived in isolation in their own bubbles, they don't understand or can fathom what other people are going through. And so that empathy barrier is it's non-existent. So, I would just encourage people to figure that out in your own bubbles. Like, how do I reach others in my immediate circle? How can we, spread that empathy instead of, just spreading isolation and just ignorance, Well,
we're going to bring this segment of Remote Teaching Diaries to a close. Our special guest today was Dulce Acevedo-Delgado. She is in what part of California again?
Hayward.
She's in the ward, in the Bay Area. Thank you for your time. I don't know. Do you have any other last thoughts, final thoughts?
No, it was great chatting with you, as always.
Word. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, this is Remote Teaching Diaries, where teachers teach teachers, teachers care for teachers, and ultimately teachers tell their stories, because we are more than just teachers, right? We juggle so much. So it's important to humanize everyone and anyone you come across. So thank you for your time. Peace.